Hi, everybody. My name is Nanika Edwards. I am a poet, artist, author, linguist, and educator from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. Today, I'd like to focus on a particular poetic device. It is a poetic device that has fun with words by implying two or more meanings within a single word or phrase. That's a pun. What the French might call double entendre, or what we might call double entendre in English, borrowing from the French, okay? So if you looked at previous videos, you would have heard me mention the word double entendre. Double means double, and entendre means to understand. It can also mean to listen. Entendre. No, not to listen, to hear. So, double entendre means that you can understand or you can hear two or more different things in a single phrase or a single word. Okay, so the poem that I'd like to share today is one that you may know because it's actually a very popular poem. So if you're into poetry, you might know this one already. It is an anonymous poem, right? The poet is anonymous, so we don't know who wrote this poem, but it's very, very clever. So this is a poem. Whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not, whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. Did you get it? So, like, I'm deliberately not showing you the text quite yet because I'd like you to get a sense of how the pun is working in this poem. I think it makes a difference if you don't see the text. Like, I'll show you the text in a little while, but just listen and see if you can figure out what the puns are about, or what the punning effect is. Okay, where is the pun, or where are the puns? Okay, so I'll read it again. Whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not, whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. That's a pretty fun poem. Okay, so I'm going to show you the text. That's a pretty fun poem. So can you figure out what the pun is? I'll give you a couple seconds. I think this one is really easy. Yes, exactly. The pun is on the word weather, right? Weather. There are about maybe 2 or 3 meanings for weather in this poem. You've got whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not, whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. There are other poetic devices in here as well. That's the main one. The main one in this poem, what makes this poem really stand out is the use of pun. So we have whether the weather, so weather, weather, right? And weather, both spelled differently, but they sound the same. So in this case, it's not exactly a case of double entendre, exactly. Like, it's not that one word has 2 or more meanings at the same time. It's not that. It's just that the words sound similar, right? It's just that the words sound similar. So the pun is really more maybe auditory, right? It's not like a pun in meaning. It's more a pun that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Soniferous, is that a word? Let me look that up. Soniferous, is that a word? I want to say that it's a sound effect, right? It's a sound effect pun. It's a sound effect pun, right? Soniferous, that is a word. Soniferous. soniferous. I'll put that up on the screen. Soniferous means conveying or producing sound. Who said little people can't know big words, right? Soniferous, it is a soniferous pun. All right, so we have weather the weather, weather meaning if the weather is fine or if the weather is hot. But of course, if the weather doesn't sound as exciting as weather the weather and weather the weather. Okay, it's just a fun, playful way of expressing that thought. Okay, and then you've got the next line with the same weather the weather, weather the weather. And then in the third line, it changes a little bit. We'll weather the weather. So weather could mean if, weather could mean like, if it's rainy, if it's sunny, that kind of thing. And then, if it's cold, if it's hot, and so on, the weather. And then in the third line, we have we'll weather the weather. We'll weather the weather. Weather the weather means we'll last it out. We'll weather the weather, whatever the weather. We'll weather the lever. I mean, not lever. We'll weather the weather. We'll weather. Weather means we'll outlast the weather, right? The weather will not so wear us down that we won't be able to handle it. We'll weather the weather. Okay, we'll weather the weather. And whether we like it or not. And then the last line, whether means if, like if we like it or not, right? Whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not. If we like it or not. Whether, but it's kind of slightly different from if. Like the first two lines, it was definitely whether meant if, the first whether. But in this line, weather is slightly different, whether we like it or not. If we like it or if we don't like it, right? Whether, but it's not exactly if, it's really more weather. So we've got three different weathers here. We have weather as in, no, we have four different weathers. We have weather as in if, weather as in the climate or not climate, but like, if it's sunny or if it's sunny, well, climate, I guess you could say climate, whether it's sunny or rainy or, hot or cold and so on. And then we've got weather as in to outlast. And then we've got weather as in literally weather, which can stand on its own, okay? Hard to find a word to substitute for that last weather, right? So we have four different weathers there. And yeah, so that's a really fun poem. It's actually a tongue twister. It is a tongue twister. And right, it's a tongue twister. And so you can have fun. You can pause the video and try saying it really, really, really fast, okay? I'm gonna try. Let's see. Let's see how fast I can say this. Whether the weather be fine or whether oh my gosh, this one is really hard. Wow, this is a hard tongue twister. Whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not. Whether the weather be cold or whether this is really hard. Okay, let me go at a moderate pace. Whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not. Whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot. Well, whether the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. Okay, I'm going to try do it even faster now. Let's see if you can beat me. Can you beat me at this? Can you do this faster than I can? Okay, let's go. And remember, you can't make any mistakes, okay? Whether the weather be fine or whether I'm already making mistakes. Whether the weather be fine or whether the weather be not. Whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot. Well, whether the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. Did you beat me? I bet you did. I bet you did. Okay, well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, whether you'd like to learn about poetry or, explore some art lessons or learn about other languages and many other topics, please subscribe to my channel because there's a lot to go through and explore, and there's a lot more to come. Okie dokie, until next time.